Welcome to lesson 4.2, where we are going to talk about adding and subtracting rational functions. Now, quick reminder, in 4.1 we did multiplying and dividing and simplifying rational functions. And you need to know that these two lessons are very distinct, different lessons. A lot of students get these two things mixed up, but just keep it in your head that 4.1 is very different from 4.2. Let me show you a little example of that. Let's say I gave you a fraction 2/3 times 4/3. Something like that. Well, from what we learned in 4.1 and from what you learned in elementary school, we would just multiply across. So you get 2 times 4 over 3 times 3, which is going to be 8/9. However, if I had given you this same problem but changed it to adding instead of multiplying, our number one step is to make sure they have a common denominator. And if they have a common denominator, a denominator that's identical, then we add the numerators. So in this problem, we have a common denominator. The denominators are the same. So we add the numerators, keep the common denominator, so we'd get 6/3. Now those are very different answers. So multiplying and adding are very different processes. So let's apply that to rational functions. In example number 1 and example number 2, we have a common denominator. So anytime we have a common denominator, we keep that denominator and then add the numerators. Now from here, it's just a simplifying process. This is kind of similar to what we did in 4.1, where we're going to combine our like terms, 5c plus c, to get that. Now there is one other step with rational functions that we do kind of do when we do fractions as well. So if you come back up here to the 2/3 plus 4/3, you probably would have simplified this. 6/3 is 2 over 1. So just like when we simplify fractions, we also need to check these answers to see if they're going to simplify, just like we did in 4.1. So to check if they need to simplify, we're going to do GCF and factoring to see if things will cancel on top and bottom. So I'm going to do GCF of the top. And it looks like the thing they have in common is a 2. So I'm going to take a 2 out of the top to get that. Doesn't look like the bottom has a GCF, nothing in common. And then I check to see if I can cancel anything on top and bottom. And just a reminder from 4.1. I can't cancel those 2's because the 2 on the bottom is part of a glue term, meaning that addition glues the 2c and the 7 together, so I have to get rid of them together. I can't separate them. So it looks like in this one, there's nothing that's going to cancel out or simplify. So that is my answer. So let's try number 2. Once again, they have a common denominator. So if they have a common denominator, that means I'm just going to add the numerators together. So I've got that. Nothing to combine, nothing to go from there. So now we just need to check if we can simplify. So check for GCFs, check for factoring. Looks like there's not a GCF in the numerator. However, the denominator will factor. So we need two numbers that will multiply to 4 and add to 4. Looks like that's 2 and 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. So we're going to factor that out. And now that we've simplified, we notice in this one, we have things that are going to cancel. We have a glue term on top that is identical to a glue term on bottom. So they're going to cancel. And now we've got a simplified. So you'll notice in example number 1, we didn't have anything that simplified at the end, but we still have to check because sometimes, like in example number 2, we have those things that cancel. So you always have to simplify it and check to see if things will cancel. So that's how we do adding and subtracting with common denominators. In the next video, we'll talk about adding and subtracting when the denominators are not common.